Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Chicken Box. If you are just joining us and you're on the East Coast, it is about 12:13 p.m. We usually start around noon, but today we're in a brand new location. The Afro has relocated our headquarters. We're still in Baltimore. We've relocated our headquarters to downtown Baltimore, and we have a staff retreat going on at the same time, but Chicken Box is still a priority for us. And so we are glad that you are here. I'm Frances Tony Draper, CEO of the Afro American Newspapers. We really are not a newspaper anymore, not just a newspaper. We are a media company, and we're so glad that you have joined us from wherever you are today. Now, if you've been watching the Chicken Box, you know this is an intergenerational, multi-generational show that comes on Thursdays, noonish. That today it was noonish, and we talk about a variety of topics, right? And so we have an exciting topic today. But before we even get into our discussion today, I want my co-host, and our other co-host will be back next week. I promise you. Impeccable is on his way back. He'll be back next week. I'm representing the boomers, and so we're going from one end to the other. So, Courtney, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I am Courtney Alexander. I am the digital marketing editor for the Afro, and I am holding it down for Gen Z.
Holding it down for Gen Z. Hey, Jewel, glad to see you. Um, Dorothy Bullware, glad to see you as well. Listen, if you're watching by way of Facebook, well, that's the only way you can watch, or YouTube. I think you can watch YouTube as well. Come on, share and like this broadcast. And we know a lot of people watch after the broadcast as well. So we're glad that you're here for the Chicken Box, powered by the 130-year-old Afro-American newspapers. Now, listen, if you live in the Baltimore area, you know that a chicken box is 4 wings and fries. It's greasy and it's good. It has salt and pepper and ketchup and maybe hot sauce, depending on what you like. And so this is where we speak our truth. And our slogan is don't be a chicken, get on the box. And so please put your comments in the chat so that we might have a two-way conversation. And speaking of conversations, and I'm going to ask Courtney in just a minute to introduce, we have a really special guest today, really special guest today, as we talk about Black people versus the NBA, the National Basketball Association. Black people versus the NBA. Basketball season just kicked off recently. I mean, the NBA took a strong stance on Tuesday. No games were played Tuesday because they wanted all of their fans to get out and vote. And speaking of that, even before our guest comes on, we want to celebrate here in Maryland the historic win of Westmore as the only African American governor. We were hoping to be able to say we have two this election season, but we have one, and we're so proud of Westmore, who becomes only the third in the nation. So we had him on Chicken Box not too long ago. And so we do congratulate Governor-elect Westmore. But today we're talking about the NBA. And so, Courtney, introduce our guest, and then we're going to bring him on camera.
Sure thing. Today we have John Celestand with us. He is visiting the Afro, and he is a retired American professional basketball player. He was a point guard. He also attended Piscataway Township High School in New Jersey before playing at Villanova University.
Villanova. He's a
Villanova.
Piscataway High School grad in Villanova, yes.
And he was also selected by the LA Lakers, and he was number 30 overall pick for the 1999 NBA draft.
Wow. John Celestand, welcome. I think you're coming on.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Chicken Box. Thank you for being with us today. Now, our viewers know this is a live show. So
Yeah.
it's not rehearsed. Technology doesn't always cooperate. But for the most part, it does. And so John Celestan has a new role. He's no longer with the NBA. You heard Courtney said that was in the late 90s. So no one is still with the NBA that was on those teams. But we want to talk about the NBA. And John, we want to thank you for being on with us today. Thank you for visiting the Afro on today in your other role with the Bloom Lab. And maybe we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about that as well. But we want to delve into this conversation. Every athletically inclined young person who likes basketball, right, or who plays basketball, everybody thinks they're going to the NBA. They all think, because I've talked to them, they say we're going to the NBA, and if you say, well, less than 100 some people go, they say that's okay, and I may have my numbers wrong, but they say, but I'm going to be one of those. Is that what you thought growing up, that you were going to go to the NBA?
So Tony, first and foremost, thank you for having me. I appreciate being on. Always a pleasure to visit you guys at the Afro. See, I don't know if I thought when I was a kid, I was more thinking about it in small steps. I was one of those kids where I was like a quick win kid. So I remember being in high school, and when I was in the ninth grade, what I wanted to do was just be on the varsity team. I said, if I can just start on the varsity team, that would be great for me. I wasn't even thinking about the NBA and those things. Once I became a starter on a varsity team, then it was like, okay, well, I want to be one of the best players in the state of New Jersey. Can I be first team all state? Once I was able to accomplish that, then it was like, oh, I might be able to get a scholarship. So I want to go to can I go to a Big East school, Villanova, Georgetown, Seton Hall, Syracuse? So I ended up at Villanova University. And even once I got there, it was always like, okay, can I be a starter by my sophomore year? It wasn't really until my junior year when I really started saying, I might have a shot. So I would say I'm not typical where I was thinking about the NBA at a very young age. If anything, I wanted to be a football player when I was a kid,
Okay.
So growing up in New Orleans originally, I lived there until I was 11 years old before I moved to New Jersey. I was a Saints fan. So really all we talked about was football in the South. So with that said, though, I'm very proud of my accomplishment because you know how it is. You said it's really, you got a better chance of getting struck by a lightning bolt than actually going to the NBA. I mean, it's a worldwide game now. Everybody plays. Germany, France, Italy. They're all over the world. So it's very difficult to make it. And I was very blessed, but it took a lot of hard work.
I bet it did take a lot of hard work. So what would you advise though young people who have game, right? They got some game. What are some of the things both on and off the court that you would say to young people?
Well, one of the first things that
you coach as
I
well.
saw derail a lot of one of the first things I saw derail a lot of guys is schoolwork, right? Because if you want to play at your high school or you want to play in college, even if you want to get recruited to a high profile university, there were guys in my neighborhood I grew up with that could play, but they couldn't play on the high school team, or they were on the high school team with me, the varsity team. And when the colleges came calling, they couldn't pass the SAT or they didn't have the minimum grade point average. So right there, if you don't have the books or you don't have the education to go along with the game, you're just going to get left behind like a lot of guys in the neighborhood. Fortunately, my mom was an educator. My mom was a teacher. She was a vice principal at Plainfield High School in New Jersey, which was the next neighboring city over from where I grew up in Piscataway. So I had that background and my grades were tight. So once Villanova, UConn, Rutgers, Seton Hall, all of these schools came looking, I had my SAT scores, I had my GPA, I was ready to go. So that's the first big thing. The second thing I would say is this, and my dad always said this to me, God rest his soul, any day that I didn't want to practice, he always talked about the guys in New York, the guys in Baltimore, the guys in Philly who, well, they were practicing. One of our running jokes was Stephon Marbury and I kind of like the same year. Stephon Marbury played for the New York Knicks for a lot of years. He would always say, I bet you Stephon Marbury's practicing. That was his thing, I bet you Kobe Bryant's practicing, another guy who I played with but against in high school. So you got to put the work in. I was the guy to get to practice early and I stay late. I felt like if I got to practice 15 minutes before everybody else did after school, by the end of the week, I had close to an hour, almost more than an hour more practice than everybody. So it was always, how much more work can I put in than everybody else? And I try to continue to do that even now. I would say until I got to the NBA, I could outwork everybody until I played for the Lakers and played with Kobe Bryant. And then it was like, okay, there's no way I'm going to outwork this guy. He was just amazing. Yeah.
Yep. So you invoked his name. What was it like playing with Kobe Bryant?
Man, it 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 was rewarding and difficult at the same time. Kobe and I go back. Um, Again, I went to Villanova University. I'm 1 year older than Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was he went to high school right around the corner from Villanova. So we were recruiting him. He would come up to the school. I played against Kobe in high school in AAU. By the way, I scored 45 points against Kobe Bryant in the game, and nobody ever talks about that.
We're talking about it today. Tell us,
Yeah, I
tell us
scored
about
40, I scored 45 points against Kobe Bryant. Now he had 53. All right, but we don't need to talk about that part. But we played against each other in high school. In college, we were recruiting him. He ended up going right to the NBA, which was unheard of back then, especially for a guard. I never knew that I would end up being his teammate. A few years later, I get drafted. We become teammates, but we knew each other from the Philadelphia area. And I would say this: I've never seen someone, not just in basketball, in any job, in any profession, work as hard as that guy did. I remember we were playing the Washington Wizards in a preseason game, and he fell down and he broke his wrist. And I remember thinking in my head, and this is selfish, right? But I was like, well, tomorrow when we get back to LA, he's not going to be the first person at practice finally. It's going to be me because I like to be the first guy there. But every time I got there, Kobe was already there. So we got back to LA. I get up, practice starts at 10. I get there like 8:30, and I show up, and there's this ball bouncing in the gym, and it's Kobe Bryant with a cast on his right wrist, which he is his shoot, and he's shooting with his left hand. And Tony, I swear, at that moment, that's when I realized. I said, it was the first time in my life. I said, I'm never gonna be as good as that guy. I just admitted it to myself, So I try to take the lessons that of his hard work and determination with me with all the other stuff I do in my life. We miss him. It was tragic what happened, but we really miss Kobe Bryant, his work ethic, and his leadership and what he meant to the game.
Wow. Well, if you're just tuning in, this is the Chicken Box powered by the Afro, and we are having a conversation with John Celestand, former member of the championship teams. Lakers have a lot of championships, the championship LA Lakers, and he's just sharing with us some of the insights from his days of playing and the things that he's learned since then. Courtney, something you want to chat with John about?
Yeah. What was your experience in the NBA like? And I don't know, do you feel like you fulfilled your dreams by going pro? Like, do you feel like you missed out on anything, or did that hit the mark?
Okay, so everybody wants, first and foremost, it was a dream come true. I have to say that. I grew up a Lakers fan. Me and my dad, we rooted for Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy. These were guys that played in the 1980s. So I would go out to the park and try to do those moves. I was a Lakers fan. So when I got drafted to the Lakers, my dad was ecstatic, right? I would say it was a dream come true, but for any guy that makes it, I wanted to play in the NBA for 10, 12, 13 years. And everybody that goes thinks that's going to be the case. And that wasn't the case for me, right? My path took me other places. I played over in Europe. I did other things. But it was a dream come true. But when you're on such a good team that I was on, not as easy to play. I mean, I saw guys that I thought weren't as good as me on other teams, and they were playing like 30 minutes a game, but their team stunk. And I was jealous, right? Because I wanted to be out there playing. But I'm sitting behind Kobe Bryant and Derek Fisher and Ron Harper and Brian Shaw and Shaq's on my team. And these other guys, I mean, I remember the Washington Wizards. They were terrible. I kept looking over, man, I could play over there, So there were some times where being on a championship team was tough because you didn't get to play, and all of us want to be out there. With that said, playing for the Lakers, it opened up so many opportunities for me in life because I was on such a famous team. So my post basketball career, I don't know if it would have been the same if I played for, I don't know, the Sacramento Kings, you know. So
Sorry, Sacramento. Sorry, long. I saw you. I saw you trying to reach for something. You didn't say the Baltimore Bullets or the Washington Wizards or the Chicago Bulls. Courtney is in Chicago, so
yeah.
so that was good. You stayed safe out there out there on the West Coast. Listen, if you're just tuning in, this is the Chicken Box where you speak your truth, and we're talking about Black people versus the NBA. So John, what can you tell us? I mean, we're the public. Most of us are the fans. You know, we're not in that elite group of either
Yeah.
on the court or even courtside. Not most of
Right.
us, right? Not most of us. And so, if you had to tell us a couple of things from the inside that are okay to share, I mean, what would you say? I mean, about the NBA. What are some of the things that the public doesn't know? We just see the stars on the
Yeah.
court, you know.
Well, I don't think that the public knows how much preparation goes into one game. Like, you know, just like anybody that runs a business, Tony, you know this, you run a business. We're here as the Bloom Lab. I'm the program director for the Bloom Lab. You just told me you did a run through with your team before we came in of the whole agenda. We had playbooks. We had whole scouting reports on the other team. They were like 30 pages long that told you everything about each player, where they liked the ball, where they wanted to shoot, all of their plays. The amount of film and video and reading those scouting reports that go into a game, people just think guys just show up and they just go out there and they run and they play. A lot of NBA players and athletes in general don't get enough credit for their ability to digest information, read through scouting reports, and be prepared. So I don't think people really understand that. The other thing is, I don't think people understand the amount of travel and how that impacts your body, being on planes for 3-4 hours, flying across country. People just think, oh, well, you go to an arena and you lose on the road because you're not at home. No, people lose on the road because they've been on a plane for 3 hours and their body's swelling up. They sleeping in a hotel bed that's not their own hotel. Some guys ain't sleeping. They out all night in the specific cities. All of that plays into why people usually lose when they go on the road versus at home. And those teams that are able to go on the road and still win games consistently is usually because they're very disciplined, well prepared, and you know those are usually the best teams. But it's a lot that goes into the study of your opponent and also just being prepared to be able to play on the road.
Right. I mean, that is a lot. And I guess every game is different depending on what the lineup is going to be and who's going to be playing and who's
Absolutely.
injured and who's,
Absolutely.
all,
All of that's in the scouting report, Tony. Like who's injured, who's out, who's
right.
who's been shooting the ball well over the last 3-4 games. Who here's an interesting one. You might be playing a team and like let's say a guy's from LA on the other team and you're playing for the Lakers. And a guy from the Wizards is from LA. Well, you know he didn't came into town and he didn't visited his family, all his friends. He got 1 million tickets. Usually they don't play good because they're so distracted.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? They're so distracted. Like if I go home and I play in New Jersey, back then it was the New Jersey Nets, I'm distracted because I have so many things to handle while I'm home. A lot of that plays in.
Mm-hmm. So was Pat Riley your coach when you played? Who was your coach?
When I played for Phil Jackson.
For Phil Jackson, okay.
I had the same coach as Michael Jordan.
Okay.
Yeah. It was actually Phil Jackson's first year with the Los Angeles Lakers when I was playing with them.
The legendary Phil Jackson. I mean, we can talk a little bit about what that looks like. What do you think, Courtney?
Ooh, speaking of distractions, I'm thinking about money. I know that money can distract you and it can offset you from your overall vision for yourself. So, can you talk about the financial aspect of being a pro athlete? Like, did you splurge? Did you have a financial advisor?
Yeah. So I think I was in the middle, right? You got to remember now, the money Shaq's making versus the money I make are two different stratospheres. And just so you understand, like by halftime, Shaq probably had made more than I made in the whole season by halftime of one game. That's the big. There's usually not a big disparity of money in any other organization. So I just want y'all to understand that first and foremost. I came from a family, we didn't have a whole lot of money. So a lot of guys, when they get into the NBA and you've never had money, it's like, okay, what do I do? Who do I go to? You can get some guys get financial advisors, and sometimes that doesn't work out because the financial advisors take you for some of the money, right? So you have to really be diligent and do your research and your homework. Most guys, they want to go out and get cars and apartments and houses. You know, I don't think I made all the best decisions, but I don't think I made the worst decisions either. I didn't even buy a car until the first game of the season. I wanted to make sure I was going to be on a team and all of that, right? I think the first car I got a Cadillac Escalade. Back then, that was like the hot car. But I did have a financial advisor that helped me put some money away. With that said, though, I was looking back one day at some of my old bank statements. I found them in like a folder in some file cabinet at my house. And I was just looking at the amount of money I spent in 1 month on just going out, drinking alcohol, food, movies, shopping. And I would never do that now. I would never do that now. And I thought about how much money I wasted. I used to throw parties in the summer at my house. I would invite 200 people to these barbecues, and you just buy alcohol and food for everybody, and they don't pay for nothing. It's just, you look back on it and you think about all the things you could have done better. And I would say, I would hope that these young guys are making better decisions than we made. I don't think I made the worst. I didn't have 3-4 cars. I didn't have 3-4 houses. I wasn't doing that kind of stuff. I didn't have no jewelry and all the stuff that the guys get, but I did get a nice car. I lived not too far from the beach in Los Angeles. Got me some nice rims. Back in the day, we used to put the chrome rims on our cars and all of that. But I would say, if I could go back and do it all over again, I'd invest in real estate. I'd buy more than one house. I'd rent some things out. But when you're 21, 22, you're not really thinking about that,
Yeah, you're right. So I have a friend that does some consulting for the NFL, and they now have some kind of program where what this person does is they come in and work with the players around. They're not the individual financial advisor, but they do some kind of presentations and workshops and things around finances. Does NBA have something like that as well?
Yeah. So when I came in, we had what was called it was like the NBA. What would we call it? It was for all the people who got drafted. And there were 60 of us, right? 30 in the first round, 30 in the second round. We all came in, and they would do these workshops for 2 or 3 days. They did everything from workshops on how to avoid being accused of sexual assault, and financial workshops, how to deal with hangers-on in your family. They did everything. But it was really, here's the thing though, Tony and Courtney. It was only for like 2 days. So you go and you do these workshops, and then it's like they let you loose into the world. And then what? Now you got a whole season. To me, you needed that consistent touch point of those workshops, not a one-off where you do 2 days and then that's it. I'm not sure what the NBA does now. I would assume that they've improved this program. But back then, it wasn't as robust. It was just 2 days. And I look back on it, a lot of guys are there and they're listening, but you know how it is. When you cram a bunch of information into 2 days, it's tough. And one thing I do remember, Master P, if y'all don't know, if y'all know, Master P, the hip hop artist, the mogul, he was actually in this workshop with me because he was trying out for the NBA, and he was already a millionaire. So he was dropping some jewels on us about what to do, how to invest, buy real estate. And a lot of guys were listening to him versus these other financial folks that didn't look like us that they were bringing in.
Right, because he had the evidence. Right.
And at that point, he was hot. This is like the late 90s. Yeah.
Right. He was hot. He was hot. I
Yeah.
also remember, and I don't know if we talk a lot about this. You mentioned it real quickly, but when I was in college, and this wasn't NBA and it wasn't NFL, but believe it or not, this was with MLB. Some of my friends, you know how you say some people we know, they would just hang out until the guys came out after
Well,
after the game. So I know
that
that happened
happened.
in NBA as well.
That happened a lot. I mean, that was every hotel, everywhere we went. And you had to be careful. That we had workshops on that about some of the what they would call the groupie women being at hotels or waiting after the game. Some women you'd see them in multiple cities, the same one. So you just had to really be careful because you never know what you're dealing with. You never know if it's just people that are excited, they love you. Because there are some fans that travel and then you may see them in Sacramento and you may see them in Utah. And then there are some people who are there to prey on athletes and they're just waiting for you to slip up. And so you do have to be very careful. And a lot of athletes are they're more aware of that now. But when you're young and you're partying and sometimes you're oblivious and you just got to be careful. Every hotel we went to, no matter what time we got there, 1:00, they'd have a rope and there were people waiting on the side of the rope. When we walked in, like a red carpet almost. It didn't matter what time. We pull in 1:30 in the morning from maybe we left Portland, now we in Seattle. They were there. So you just had to be very careful.
That had to be pretty, I'm sure, overwhelming for a young player. Well, not all the players are really relatively young.
Yeah. You make some good decisions, you make some bad decisions, and you just hope some guys. I'll put it like this, Tony. Some guys were smarter than others. You know what I'm saying? And everybody's going to learn at their own pace. You just got to be careful. You got to be careful.
Right. Hey, Craig Talley, we see your question. What do you think about this Kyrie Irving situation? Somebody's asking.
So here's my take on this. And I was talking to some of your employees about this. The first thing I want everybody to understand is Kyrie Irving is not a bad guy. He's just trying to figure himself out. With that said, Kyrie Irving did not get suspended by the NBA. He got suspended by the Brooklyn Nets. And Kyrie Irving did not get suspended because he posted a video. He got suspended because he posted a video that had some questionable things in it, some truths, a lot of quotes that were wrong. His boss wanted him to take it down, the owner of the team, and was texting him and asking to talk with him and come in, and he ignored his owner for days at a time. That's when the Nets suspended him, right? So people are saying that he's getting railroaded and he's being emasculated and this is a quote unquote lynching of a black man. I disagree with that. Now, are they going a little far? I think they're being a little excessive with what they want him to do. But Kyrie Irving has had a lot of questionable things he's done over the past couple of years. And as an employer, they're just a little fed up. Like Tony, if I was working for you and I did something, I posted something on the Afro's website or post something on my Facebook and you say, John, you got to take that down. That's questionable. And then you were calling me and texting me and emailing me and I just ignored you for 5 days. What you going to do? Yeah, we all. So that's my take. Kyrie has his own views. I watched that video and to me, it was a little excessive. There was a lot of things in there that if I am the face of an organization, I wouldn't post that. So that's my take on it.
You bring up a good point because it is still, in some respects, an employer-employee. It's people don't look at it that way, but you actually, I mean, look at Jerry Jones. I know that's NFL, but you work for Jerry Jones, like it or not. When he took a stand around this, the kneeling,
right?
It was his shot, right?
It's his show. They pay you, right? It's a corporation. People don't think of it that way. It's a corporation. And Kyrie Irving is probably, he and Kevin Durant are the two of the most highly visible players in the NBA. They're definitely two of the most highly visible players for the Brooklyn Nets. Correct. So look, they tried to help him. They were like, I don't think they were going to suspend him. I think they were like, hey, come in. They were going to talk to him. They're going to take it down. You got to remember, Brooklyn is home to a large, high percentage of Jews. No matter what you think about who was the first Jew, if the first Jews were black, but the white Jews that are in Brooklyn is a high percent, and they buy a lot of tickets and they sit courtside. So I think it came down more to a business decision more than it was Kyrie's beliefs. It's really business.
That's an interesting take. So you got a 5-game suspension. So I think you served 4 of them,
Minimally.
And then Nike minimally, right?
Minimally.
And then Nike is saying, hey, you no longer are the face of our brand as well. So it has all these repercussions down the line.
It's all about what you consider hate speech, right? And I don't think Kyrie did any. He didn't do anything. There was no hate speech, but there are groups that may watch that video and be offended. There are other groups that are saying, well, there's nothing offensive there in the video. But a lot of those people haven't watched the video. I watched it. It's 3 hours. And to me, it was 3 hours I wish I could get back, right? But there was still some questionable things in there. Quotes from folks that did questionable things to the Jewish community back in the day that I think if I were he, I would say, if you want to have a discussion with your friends in private about that's once you post it to people say, oh, it's his platform. No, it's Facebook's platform that you're renting or whatever social media platform you use. And whenever you post something, you're promoting it, whether you know it or not. You're promoting. If I post my family, my birthday, whatever, I'm promoting that. And so you got to be careful.
All right. Thank you, John. That was really helpful. I mean, to those of you who are watching, this broadcast even live now or later, we're interested in what you think. What do you think about the Kyrie Irving suspension or what he said? Or have you watched the video, or are you just taking? Now, those of us in the news media, we are charged with giving you accurate, unbiased information, but we already know that that's not the case across the board. That's the case with the Afro. That's the case with the Afro, but not across the board. But that's another whole chicken box. Do we really look at stories about people? They don't have to be as famous as the Kyrie Irving, but do we look at them ourselves, or do we just comment on what somebody else has already commented on? Courtney, we're about ready to wrap up in about just a few minutes. You look like you just bursting to ask John something. That was a good one about Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I want to phrase this question. So we know on social media, like stories, you can like spin a story, and I guess social media users can like create a new narrative to it. So do you think that what happened to Kyrie Irving is like a case of that? Do you think people, like you said, they didn't watch the video? Do you think that they just heard about what happened and they kind of like spun a story and they just made up like their own narrative to it?
Yeah, because a lot of people are saying boycott the NBA as if the NBA suspended Kyrie Irving. Remember, one of the things about the NBA is it's one of the more progressive leagues. When you compare it to the NFL and Major League Baseball, the NBA is far more progressive than those leagues. I'm not saying the NBA is perfect. They got some shit. They got some issues because back in the day, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, he wouldn't salute the flag and he disappeared from the NBA. There was a guy named Craig Hodges who he played with Michael Jordan and he played for the Chicago Bulls. They won the NBA championship. Craig Hodges was a devout Muslim. He wrote a letter to George Bush, the first George Bush at the time, President Bush, gave the letter to George Bush talking about all the inequities in the black community. And a year later, he was out the league and he was never heard from again. And he was like one of the leading three-point shooters in the league. So the NBA has had a history of having some issues, but they've drastically improved, right? Even last couple of years, everything they did with the Black Lives Matter movement, and all of those things. So I want everybody to understand the NBA is much better than NFL and Major League Baseball and all those other leagues. As far as the narrative, yeah, people are really stuck on that the NBA is trying to punish Kyrie Irving or that they're trying to emasculate him, when really it's the Brooklyn Nets that have had enough because of some of the things that they've had to go through with Kyrie Irving. and it's not just this, they had the vaccine thing, whether you agree with the vaccine or not, and it was his choice, he still missed a lot of games because of that. And they didn't win the championship, and they were favored to be in the championship. Kyrie, after the Capitol riots, he said he needed time off. They gave him time off, but he's supposed to be quarantining. He gets caught at a birthday party, and they were supposed to be they're supposed to be all relaxing, and they got to stay away from people because this was COVID. So there's all kind of things that he's done. This isn't a one-off incident. And so I think people are saying, everybody's out to get Kyrie because he wants to be a free thinker. I don't have any problem with you trying to figure out your heritage, trying to figure out where your people come from. If you want to be an Black Israelite, that's your choice. But once you start affecting the bottom line, which is the dollars, the money, and not even having a conversation with your boss, that's problematic in any workplace environment. And the last thing I'll say is this: all the people that are saying, "Hey, Kyrie, go out and say this, say that," stand your own. These same people they're the same people running back to work after 5 minutes late from their lunch. They wouldn't do these things. I don't want Kyrie and Kanye to railroad their careers. I wouldn't do it. So we got to be careful with that, telling these folks to throw everything away. When if you were in that position, would you do that? Probably not.
Yeah, all of these are good points. You really do. You bring up this whole thing around history, and somebody said, no fallout for Brett Favre, right? That's what, and so it does seem like, a double standard of justice. Kyrie, though, has had a couple of incidents leading up. I mean, it's like Kanye, right? So, it's not the first time that these things, they may be different, but they're controversies, and there's some controversial figures in every sport because they're controversial people in life.
Yeah. And Brett Favre's been retired for like 10 years. So to compare Brett Favre with Kanye and Kyrie, Brett Favre is not going to get any clicks right now. Let's just keep it real. So his story is not. Now, if this was Brett Favre back in the day, because I don't know if people remember when Brett Favre got caught sending that girl, the reporter, pictures of himself, that was news, right? Because he was still hot. Now he's 10 years removed. So I keep hearing people bring up Brett Favre, but he's not going to be the first story anymore because he's not a current high-profile athlete.
Correct. Because even for Kyrie Irving's 5-day suspension, what did they say? $2 million is about what he loses.
Yeah, he's lost over like $300 million over the last couple of years, and all of his suspensions, not playing last year. He lost half his salary last year because he couldn't play home games. He's lost a lot of money, but
and still has a lot of money.
Yep, it's his choice.
Speaking of money, John Celestand, I know that you played with a lot of, like you said, a lot of superstars. I can even imagine being on that team. And I know that you also said you didn't play long. What did life after the NBA look like for you? What would you advise? I mean, I've seen people come out of professional sports and just flounder. I mean, just can't seem to find their way.
Yeah, I'll say the first couple of years was tough, because the biggest transition from being an athlete, and I'm going to use the word civilian because we still are civilian, but athlete to the real world. Let's say it like that. When you're an athlete, everybody's coming to recruit you. They want to recruit you to play at their school. They want to draft you to play in their organization. Then when you get out in the real world, nobody's recruiting you anymore. You have to sell yourself and your skills. And that's a hard transition for a lot of athletes. The first couple of years were tough. I stopped playing at an early age, I was 30 years old. So I could have kept playing, but at 30, imagine all my other friends had started their careers in 21. They got 8-9 years of work experience. I was 30 years old and all my work experience was basketball. So my girlfriend at the time, she's my wife now, she helped me put together my resume. She said, hey, you have all of these leadership skills, team building. And I started out in sports marketing. So I was working for a sports marketing company. I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was able to transition that I did some sales. I started doing broadcasting. So I was a broadcaster for ESPN covering college basketball. That transitioned into me doing college and doing some things with Comcast Sportsnet for the Philadelphia 76ers. I was also a journalist. So I had like a column. I was just trying to find my way over the years, but the transition at the beginning was difficult. And I would say this, it's hard for a lot of athletes because it's a very humbling period. But if you can get past that, okay, I can't go out and buy drinks for everybody at the bar anymore. I may not be able to ride around in an Escalade or a Benz. I got to downsize. Maybe I can't have this big house I had before. Now I got to get a town, whatever it is. Once you come to grips with that and you're able to accept that, that's kind of when you're on your way. And then you realize, I got to go out, I got to do interviews, and I got to build my resume. I got to tell people what my skills are. It's really that part that a lot of guys struggle with. And the last thing I'll say is your education is so important. I graduated, I got my degree in 4 years. There are guys that didn't. That's the first, you got to have an education now. And now, if you don't have a master's degree or, another degree, it's even harder coming out. So you just gotta be humble. You have to be able to handle the transition, and you have to be okay leaving that life behind. Some guys aren't. They're still talking about what they did in 1992, what they were in high school and college, or what they did in the NBA. And it's 15 years later, there's other things. You got a whole life ahead of you. So don't get caught up talking about the past forever. There's more to do.
Amen. So it's more to do. It's almost like a flash of your life. And if you get injured, it's a real short time span, right? And as you said, everybody who's drafted is not making the Kobe Bryant salary.
Nope. Not at all.
Nowhere near. The Magic Johnson salary, the Shaq salary. They're not, they're making good money, but they're not making that salary. So Absolutely. So you go in, I guess, with the end in mind, right? You know that it's going to be short term. Okay, we're about ready to do the last part of this chicken box where we call this the hot grease. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. Thank you for your comments and your questions. We appreciate that. Thank you, John Celestand, for being with us today. But each of us will have 30 seconds. I'm coming to you first, Courtney. So start thinking about what you want to say. 30 seconds or so to just get on the box. You can talk about the topic we've been talking about, or you can talk about whatever is on your mind. But go on, Courtney. Let's close out. You are on the box. And John, we're going to leave you to last.
Okay. John, it's a pleasure meeting you in person. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm already enjoying this session, and I find it so cool that you were in the NBA and that you worked with Kobe and you played with Shaq. Or did you play with Shaq?
Yes, I played with Shaq. Yeah.
I want to make sure first, but that is amazing. And thank you for sharing your wisdom, especially to the youth. I feel like you said, the NBA isn't the end all be all, I guess. So it's great that they can think of other options and that you can still make it outside of being a pro athlete. So that's great.
Thank
you. I appreciate that.
John Celestand, you said the same thing at the beginning that you said at the end. Get your education. That is key. And so whether your mom was a school teacher like yours was, or whether or not, right? Your SAT scores, your education opens the door, and your athleticism adds. It's like almost a cherry on top. So don't do it backwards. That's what I heard you say. And so I want to just say, as being on the box, that I think that's just a good formula for life. Get yourself prepared for life after whatever you're in now, right? But especially if it's professional athletics, because anything can derail a career. The competition is stiff, especially on a basketball team. It's not as big of a team as a football team, but on a basketball team. And I also heard you say that the work ethic is just so important. Not just getting good grades, but all of those things. And so my hope, I'm going to be on the box. I hope that the NBA, if they don't do it now, they have a program of ongoing support for younger aspiring athletes to say, hey, this is what the real NBA looks like. I'm hoping. And John, you are a coach. I know you coach your son's team, but I'm hoping that coaches are saying the same thing to young men and young women who may want to go to the WNBA. These are the talking about fundamentals, because sports are based on learning your fundamentals. This is part of the fundamentals, and so I'm getting off the box, but I wanted to thank you for just sharing with us. John, you on the box. You can talk about NBA, your career, or anything else you'd like to share.
Well, I like to talk about this. We have, as Black folks, have to continue to work together. I see this, and not that we don't. We just have to continue to do it more. When you see other cultures, other communities, they are coming together. They are supporting each other. We have to continue to do that, whether that be supporting Black businesses, whether that be home ownership and education. We have to continue to do that. Just like a lot of other cultures. We can go on and on about all the fractures in our community and the different things that caused us to be separate. But I want to continue to make sure that we work with each other, we collaborate, we partner with each other, we support Black businesses like the Afro, we support restaurants, we have to do these things as a community. And I'm not saying we aren't. We have to continue to do it, just like everyone else. And if we can focus on that, I think we have a bright future ahead of us.
All righty. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. This has been the Chicken Box powered by the Afro. Please go to afro.com. If Impeccable was here, which he'll be next week, he would say for less than the cost of 2 Uber Eats, for $40 a year, the entire year, you can get the digital edition of the Afro delivered straight to your email. Or for $100 a year, you missed a special. We had a special for the 130th, but it's still really affordable. For $100 a year, you can get both the digital and the print editions of the Afro. If you say, like many of us do, I want just my digital edition, that's fine. Give the print away. Or if you say, I love the print, give the digital away, but you get 2 for 1. So go to afro.com. You'll notice that Courtney and I have on our Afro swag today. As our whole team does. So theafromall.com, theafromall.com. All right, go to afro.com. See you next week. Thanks, John Celestand. Thank you, co-host.
Thank you for having me.
All right, take care, everybody. See you soon.